All right, students, we're going to be learning about mitigations and adaptations, what these words are, what they have to do with climate change, and how we personally can do these things and or push for these things to happen. Okay, first of all then, what is the difference here? So mitigation fixes the cause of an actual problem. Adaptation manages the impact of a problem. Here's some examples of that. We've got repairing the broken pipes fixes the flood in the house. So if we do that, we're actually getting rid of the cause of the reason a house is flooding. Doing something like putting up sandbags and cleaning the flood water manages the problems. The flood is still there, but we're dealing with the problems associated with the flood, and that is adaptation. Okay, so we're going to first talk about mitigations of climate change, and then we will move into adaptations of climate change. So mitigations means we need to figure out what the cause is and then attack the cause. The cause of climate change is the increased greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide, in the air due to humans burning fossil fuels. So to mitigate that, that means we need to put less carbon dioxide in the air and remove the carbon dioxide, the excess that is already there. Okay, how are we going to put less in the air? That would be things such as green energy, so using different sources of energy, sources that do not produce the carbon dioxide. Doing things like driving electric cars that are then hooked up to green energies. Because if we have electric cars produced from the electricity from fossil fuels, well, we're still not getting it. So we need electric cars that are hooked up to solar panels and stuff like that. We need fuel-efficient cars. We're still going to be driving cars that use fossil fuels, but cars that are more efficient at using that fuel. We should use energy-efficient appliances. I'm going to zoom in on this. This is something you may encounter later in your life when you're making decisions to buy appliances for your homes, like washers, dryers, dishwashers, refrigerators, microwaves. Look for this kind of stuff. Those are the energy-efficient appliances. Another thing we can do then is basically just not drive. Not using the items in our society that use the fossil fuels. Mitigating by removing the carbon dioxide from the air, that's going to be stuff like carbon capture devices, which is some modern technology that pulls carbon out of the air, or things like actually reforesting places where the trees have been removed because trees pull carbon dioxide from the air. This is a list. Take a look at it. This is just other stuff I've talked about with students over the years. All of these things are mitigations. Maybe Kate, screenshot this, stick it in your notes. All right. Personal versus systemic mitigations. Personal meaning choices that an individual person can make. Systemic meaning bigger system-wide changes, things that governing bodies do. So entire governments, the businesses and the manufacturers, the people who are in charge of the bigger systems. Let's take a look at what that might be, and then we'll go back to personal mitigations. Systemic would mean things such as our energy grid being hooked up to green energy. You can put solar panels on your house, but I mean like the entire grid being green energy. That's not a personal mitigation. That would be systemic. Cement alternatives. Cement, believe it or not, is one of the things that as it cures, meaning as it dries, it will produce quite a lot of carbon dioxide. Tax breaks and rebates for green energy. That is a government thing. That would incentivize businesses to make the better for our environment kind of decision. Big businesses selling local goods, meaning larger stores like Target, Walmart, that sort of a place, selling goods that are produced locally so that there's less shipping around the world, because shipping utilizes transportation systems that burn fossil fuels. Carbon tax is something that is discussed. Carbon tax would be a political thing, but where basically companies, to keep doing what they do, emitting the greenhouse gases, they would have to pay for it, which would incentivize them to do that less. And things like electric car charging stations, that would be a systemic thing, like less gas stations, more electric car charging stations, or just actually more electric car charging stations. We wouldn't have to get rid of gas stations, but that makes it easier for our personal choices. Let's take a look at personal mitigations. Okay, a lot of these, actually, if we look at here, these are ones that I literally put on the list up above. That would be your personal choice to do. You can basically buy the right products like eco-friendly plastics or plastic alternatives. Don't use plastics. Folks, plastics are produced from fossil fuels, if you didn't know that. And so this is a fossil fuel thing. Now, of the plastics you're using, please recycle them, but it's better to just not use the plastics in the first place. You can do something like becoming vegetarian. A meat-based diet puts a lot more carbon and greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Cows fart methane all day long and burp it. That is a greenhouse gas. Also, the amount of resources needed to grow and raise things like chickens, pigs, and cows takes a lot more resources and greenhouse gases, produces greenhouse gases, as opposed to farms that are just farming the vegetables. And then also you can choose to buy locally made stuff, because then there is less shipping, and that goes along with that right there. Okay, so now in the end, what's actually going to solve climate change? The personal mitigations or the systemic mitigations? Keep doing what you're doing. That's good. It will make a difference. But it is the systemic things that need to happen. Now, here's what I want you to do. If you're watching this video, I assume that's because you're absent. I want you to pause my video, go watch this video, which is, it looks like this. It's linked on our Canvas homepage. It's down here. I want you to watch this video. It's important. Do that and come back. That addresses things such as climate doomerism and how there is some good news out there. It's talking about gains we have made around the world and things that can be done moving forward. Go check that out. All right, moving on though to adaptations. Adaptations would be managing the impacts of climate change. So this is like putting a Band-Aid on it. The problem is still there, but we need to do something about it. So for instance, one of the impacts of climate change is sea level rise. Why is the sea level rising actually a problem? Because it floods our cities. What can we do then? We can do things such as people living near the oceans can move inland. Of the houses that are still there, these things need to happen. Waterproofing the electrical systems, raise the house, buying insurance so that it fixes it when things go wrong. Another one that's on here, we can do things like, building seawalls that will keep the water out. However, there is a point that the water will still breach over the seawall and over the levee, so that's really just a temporary fix. So all of these things can be done, and that deals with sea level rise, but it doesn't stop the water from rising. The problem still exists. Next one, an impact of climate change we've talked about, an increase in seasonal allergies. One thing I want to make sure you understand, because I know you can tell why that's a problem, but why is it happening? It's happening because there's actually more pollen in the air, and there's things specifically such as ragweed in which that produces a pollen that a lot of folks are allergic to, and the growing season for ragweed is longer. That does mean ragweed is a little bit of a winner from climate change. It's not bad for all populations, but anyway, these kinds of populations ultimately will tax the ragweed and they won't do well. But for now, there's more pollen, and so more folks are getting allergic reactions and struggling with that. What do we do to fix it? Well, you've got to take medicine to combat your allergies, and or medicine to reduce the symptoms, such as to reduce the stuffy nose. Another thing you can do is wear a mask to filter the pollen. I don't see much of that happening, but it will work. It is something you can choose to do. You can also just stay indoors. Okay, these things we do to deal with our seasonal allergy issues, but the seasonal allergies are still there, so that is an adaptation. Okay, I want you to do one more, but do it on your own. Go back and look at your impacts of climate change notes. Pick one of the impacts and come up with an idea of how do we adapt to it. Okay, on your own, do we mitigate, adapt, or both? Pick one of those impacts from climate change, from our impacts notes, and come up with some adaptations. I want personal adaptations and I want systemic adaptations. Then also another cause of climate change. The causes are also in your impacts notes, a personal mitigation related to that and a systemic mitigation related to that. But P.S., here's the thing. Do we really need to mitigate or adapt? We're going to have to do both. Climate change is happening. It's here now. The issues are happening. We are left with no choice, but we have to also adapt. But it's going to keep happening and getting worse if we don't mitigate. So this is really the key, but we also have to do this.